Hello guys, my name is Arun, and today we'll be talking about Visual Studio 2013, the new features of Visual Studio 2013. I've kind of broken down into four categories: IDE, the IDE enhancements, coding improvements, improvements on the coding side, improvements for web developers and web and HTML developers, and then finally we'll end up with touching a few features for on the JavaScript and CSS side. Excuse me. So people usually have multiple devices these days, right? So you install Visual Studio on one of them, and let's say this is the default theme you get, these are the default settings you get. You're like, well, the font size is small. It's not what I want, and then let's say you want to go ahead and manually change it to something. Okay, I'm just going to make it small for now, just to prove the point to you. I'm also going to remove the line numbers, right? So this is, let's say this is a setting you get, and what you do is you have to go back in and make all the changes, change the theme and the colors and all those things. You do it, and then the next time you install it on another box, you still have to do all those things again. So instead, Visual Studio 2013 comes up with this new feature where you can actually log into Visual Studio and it will remember all your settings. Something is tickling my throat. Okay, as soon as it comes up, I'm logging into my live account. Okay, so 4. You see that I'm also already logged in here. You're seeing a picture of me, you're seeing my name there, and that's one change, and I got my line numbers. The font size are also pretty big, right? So what I'm doing is I just did Control Q. I'm going to synchronize. So it takes me to tools, options, environments, synchronize settings, and these are all the settings that it actually keeps track for me, right? So I can once I do the setting on one box, I just go after logging in, I make all the changes. It remembers those settings for me. So the next time I log into another box or install Visual Studio on another box and log into my account, it will port all of these settings into that one. So that way you don't have to do it over and over again. So that's the nice feature. Another one with scaffolding is when you want to open a new project or a new web application project, you see that you're only seeing one ASP.NET entry here, right? You're not seeing, so I have 2012 installed, and this is what it looks like in 2012. Kind of confusing, right? I mean, what is it that you want to do? I just want to open a web application, sure. And then when you do OK, and that's when you get these multiple options. This is where all the custom templates will come into picture, right? So you can say I want an empty one with web forms, this web forms with API and MVC, or I just want a web API, or I want an MVC with web forms. You can do your choice, right? Or I'm just going to say MVC with web API. So you are in freedom. So you see this Facebook template is there. So you can create applications of your choice, and your templates will actually come in here, not in the previous window, not in here, because Microsoft is coming up with this concept of one ASP.NET. Okay. Now, earlier, anytime you logged into Visual Studio and there were updates for, let's say, your Visual Studio, or there are any updates for the extensions or plugins that you have, it used to come up as a balloon here, right? The balloon in the right-hand corner of your screen that says updates available, without telling you exactly what updates were, and then you have to click on it, and that's when it took you to that window. Instead, Microsoft has come up with this notifications window where it shows all the notifications, it shows all the updates that you have for your Visual Studio. And then I've seen this already, so that's why it's telling me that it's 0 new and 1 total. And then when I hover over this, it says the expires is a month. So they'll have this notification for a month, and after that they're going to remove it for you. That way it's kind of clean. You don't have to be bothered that it'll stay there forever. You can manually dismiss it. You can dismiss them all if you want. And then when you click on an individual update, that's when it will take you to extensions and updates window, and you can do an update. The actual update happens only from this window, not from the notifications. That's just the notifications window. Okay. At times you want to be able to keep your So I'm going to type track active here. Right. So at times you want to you want to track your items in Visual Studio Solution Explorer. So now I'm in the home controller and it shows exactly where my home controller is. If I go to item controller, it will show me in Visual Studio, in Solution Explorer, where exactly that file is located. Right? It'll do for everything. If for some reason you don't want to see that for every item, you can disable it. Did I get that? There. Okay. So you can disable it, and now you can collapse this, and now obviously you're not seeing it, but you can do it on an individual level, right? Individual file level. So for that particular file, if you want to know where exactly it is, you can click on that one. It is available in Visual Studio 2012 update 4, right? I think it's update 4. I'm not sure if it's 3, but in 4 it's definitely I'm able to see that double arrow there, right, where you can click on and say show me where this item is, right? Sync with active item. Up until 2013, we could actually debug, and during the debug session we could change the code and continue debugging, but we couldn't do that for 64-bit processors. If IIS was running in 64-bit, well, we didn't even have an option to run IIS in 64-bit. But now if I go to Task Manager, I can show you that is running initially. It's running as a 32-bit process. Combine. Right. So okay, so it's running as a 64-bit process now, and what I'm going to do is, firstly I'm going to show you that. Okay, that's weird. Okay, let me just start over again. I think it was running before. Okay, so now I have turned off this, and then let me bring up my Task Manager and just running this project here. Right, so you're seeing it running as a 32-bit process. Okay. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to make that, and I am just going back to IIS. So it's taking me to projects and solutions, web projects. I'm going to tell it to run the 64-bit version of IIS Express for websites and projects. Now you're seeing that IIS is not running here, so I'm just going to go ahead and debug. Bear with me for just a couple of moments. That's not bad. Okay. Now, first is you're seeing that IIS is now running as a 64-bit, so you're not seeing the 34-bit within parentheses. Then next, I'm going to say, do I have a breakpoint there? Yes. So I'm just going to refresh, and look at this. So I'm going to change some code. Items of type list. Convert that to an item, right? So, and then I can just do that. There, I just have one item now. It's of type config item, and then I move by, right? So enable, edit, and continue is now available for 64-bit process. Obviously, you have to have that one checked in order to be able to enable and continue, right? Now another one is voice commands. Let me do the save. Right. So another one is voice commands. You have I'll give you the plugin later on. You have a plugin. You can just install that plugin. It's a very small plugin. Once you install it, you're getting this tools start listening. I'm just going to do Alt V and see if it works. I'm having some noise around. My processor is really loud, so hope it works. So if you look at the left bottom part where it says ready, eventually start saying something else. Okay, so it says I'm listening, right? So as and when I'm talking, it's trying to understand what it is that I'm saying. Okay, obviously it didn't get what I'm saying, so let's try this now. Tools, options. options. Oops. Options. Come on. Options. Solution Explorer. Come on. So, but you do realize that it's yes. Yes. Oh, come on. No, this is weird. Options. Not even listening to me. Anyways, so you can just do that. I'll try with this bit later. Um, I'm just going to give it one more shot. Options. Okay, for some reason it's not working. My processor, as I said, is kind of loud, so it's not able to. No, thank you. All right, so you can just do that. It kind of works well if you have very less ambient noise. Okay, so those are what voice commands. Those are some of the IDE enhancements, and this voice commands thing is available in 2012 as well. I don't know. I just want to try it one more time. What can I say? Now. Wow, took me to a completely separate place. What can I say? Okay, so what I did was it actually took me to this GitHub place where it says that these are all the commands that I have that I can say. You know, I can actually train Visual Studio to perform those actions for me. Right, so you just saw it working. Options. No, mind. So those are some of the IDE enhancements. We'll move on to the coding side, the improvements on the coding side. Okay, so on the coding side, we have this new thing called CodeLens. Open. Okay, so what's CodeLens? So how many times has it happened that you want to know, hey, who modified this method for me, this particular method? Who modified that last, and who modified that before that, right? So what about who made this property as read write? I had set it to read earlier, and then someone made it as read write. So I want to know who made that changes, or even at a higher level, how many changes have happened to this class ever since it was created, right? So those kind of questions are difficult to answer with the current TFS we have, but with CodeLens it's kind of a breeze. So let's start with this. You see there's 8 references here. There are these lines. I can't even select them. Those are not actually code lines, so I can't select them. Those are CodeLens attributes, right? So I can't even select them. So those are just CodeLens attributes. Now when I click over that, it gives me all the references where you're seeing the instance of laptop, right? So you're seeing a reference of laptop. So the first one is where I'm initializing the read-only list. And then the next one is where I'm saying, hey, I want to initialize that with the values. And then I have the method calls here, which return my get laptops, and get laptop return an instance of laptop or a collection of laptops. So those are the references for this type. Right? I'll come to the class now, and it says my name and Arun Mahendrakar and 3 others have made the change. So when I click on it, it actually takes me to all the change sets that were done for that particular class, and then it gives me the names of the guys who have done those changes. So this one says is a local version, so I'm on the latest one. If not, it'll tell you that this local version would be somewhere below, telling you that you're not on the latest version, right? So it gives you the details of what change set it is, and then who did that and when they did those changes. So obviously you can double click on them and go to the details, or you can say I'm going to right click and say view the difference from the previous one, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to check the TFS and see the changes. So I think I changed it from 10 to 20. So it helped me see the difference. The next one is kind of obvious. It's kind of the same thing as the previous one. It just tells the number of total number of changes that were done for this class, right? And then as in the previous window, I can click on a name here and then say, you know what, I just want to send an email to this guy regarding this change set. So I can easily do that now. Right? So and then it says there is one work item associated with this, right? And that's the change set which associated that work item. So you know that now you know a lot of these information without even leaving the context of what you're working on. The other thing it shows is your code reviews, your bugs. It shows how many unit tests are there for this particular method, right? It's almost impossible for us to find out now unless we do a right click, find all references, and then filter it by the testing projects that you have. Unless you do that, it's not just that easy. But here it just shows, I mean, I don't have any unit tests here, but it just shows how many unit tests are there for this particular method and how many are failing. So it just gives you all that information. Another thing I want to mention here is when I clicked on this, for some reason my link is not working really well, but if it did, you would see the green box next to the person and you can directly ping them. So when I do a right click on this, it will say, instead of email, it will say, hey, do you want to IM Sanjeev? Right? So that is what CodeLens is. Now the real benefit of CodeLens was in one of our classes. We had like 5 methods for those classes. That's kind of simple methods, but apparently not. One of those methods was not that simple. So the remaining 4 methods had 2 changes in them, and this last method had 9 or so changes. And when I looked into it, when I saw what it is that it was trying to do, and when I looked into it, it said, when I looked at the number of people, almost everyone in my team had modified that method. And then that told me that this particular method has too many clients, right? So it is actually violating the single responsibility principle. So I had to go ahead and refactor it. How would I have known otherwise? Probably never, right? Unless something goes wrong and we start debugging and then we realize. But here, right when you're looking at your class, you're finding out that, hey, you know what, why are there so many changes for this particular method as compared to the other methods, right? So if your method is doing too many things, then chances are that many people will come and modify it just with that one if block that they are concerned about, and then they check it and kind of a thing, right? That shouldn't be the case in a good design. So CodeLens helps you even for your design aspects as well. Right? So I'm going to try to do this suspend feature. Right? So what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to say if count is greater than 10, then do laptops dot take of 10 list of them, because that's what is returned. If not, then just return laptops, right? So that is my code, and in here, instead of getting the whole bunch, I'm just doing search within the first 10, right? So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm then saying search within the first 10, and then let's say I'm having some other files open here. For example, I can just do this. I will go ahead and say show on code map. Right? So I'm showing this on code map, and that will tell me the hierarchy of how many methods are calling this and who are the clients, what is get laptops calling internally, and all those things, right? So right when you're here, let's say your colleague calls you and says, hey, you know what, I want some help from you. We are looking into this feature. Can you come over and help me? Or they just want to do it on your box, and then you say, you know what, I'm in the middle of something, and that's when the discussion goes, hey, you know what, this is high priority, really critical feature, and we have to get it done. So all of those things are happening. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to save my code map file, and then I'm going to go, I don't want to lose all of this work, right? So I'm going to go into my work, and then I'm going to say suspend this edit. So I'm just going to give a meaningful message that says get laptops, I can type right, and then I'm going to do suspend. So what it's going to do is this: it actually takes the entire snapshot. It actually takes a snapshot of Visual Studio, the way it was. It takes a snapshot of that and then checks it in. It's like shelf set, but a lot more than shelf set. Shelf set only does the status of your files, but not the status of Visual Studio itself. And when you're back and you want to continue where you were, you just click on your suspended work and click on resume, and all your windows and all your context and everything will be brought back to where you left it, right? So that's what we are going to see now. There, so your code file is open, your code map is open, and all those things. So that is suspend. You can obviously, once you're done with all these things, you can check it in and all those stuff. Those are all available. Okay, so that is suspend. Now, going back to my other solution. That so okay, so coming back here, when I do control comma, which is for navigate to, earlier this was a big window, it's a blocking window, it just covers everything in front of your screen, but now they made it as just a find replace window which docks at the top right of your text editor. So I can just search for something and it gives me, it looks at methods, files, types, right? So it looks for all of those, and then you're seeing that it's giving a preview of what it is that you have selected currently, right? So I've selected all of these, and it's just giving me a preview. And when you're done with it, you can just press escape, and it'll take you back to your context. So you started with items getter, it brings you back to items getter. That way you don't lose your context, right? Now the next feature is peek window. This is one of the really nice features that I like in 2013. So you're looking at some code and you say, okay, what is items getter? Right? So you say, okay, let me go to the definition, and then okay, what is config item here? Then again go to the definition, or you can actually press F12, which is a shortcut for that, and then you're in config item and says, okay, what is a module then? Oh, okay, that's what is a module. So this is what you're kind of finding out, and then you say, you know what? Now where was I before? Where was the method that calls the items getter, right? So you kind of lose. I mean, right now I don't have too many files open, but that's usually not the case. So what Visual Studio helps us with is, let me close these unwanted ones. Okay, so what Visual Studio helps you with this is this. Now instead of doing F12, which is go to definition, you can do Alt F12, and that opens up the peek window for you, right? So items getter is now opened in a small window. You can just peek at it. You can just look at what it is that the entire method is doing, that class is doing, and then you can also do another peek inside a peek window, right? So you see, it gave me a breadcrumb trail here. So it's saying items getter and then a config item, and then when I do one more, I'm again doing Alt F12 here. So when I do it, my breadcrumb trail is obviously updated, and it's not just that, I can actually bring my prop, right? So there, I made my change, right? Now, if you actually, how do you exit? In order to come back to your context, you just do escape, and you're back in your context. Now, if you go to the module file, you see that the new property that we added is actually in there. So it allows not only for read, but it also allows for write. If you have used Visual Studio Productivity Power Tools, you'll be familiar with this. This is the enhanced scroll bar. Let me go to a big file. Right? So this is kind of a big file. It has around 400 lines. So you can just hover over the scroll bar and you'll start seeing a preview of your code. Right? That way you're searching less. Your up and down, the scroll bar up and down is kind of reduced on that one. So how do you get this? Now this enhanced scroll bar is now a part of Visual Studio 2013. This is not through Power Tools. So you right click on the toolbar on the scroll bar, and you go to scroll bar options, and you're seeing this bar mode, which is the default option, the regular one. Let me just show that to you. Right, this is the regular one. You can obviously go to a map mode. You can see the preview, and you can set the width of the source overview window. So when I do an OK, there, that is your scroll bar now, and that is your preview. So this is now a part of Visual Studio 2013. What you can also do is you can click on this icon. This is something like, same. It gives you a split window of the same class, right? So let's say you want to look at this class and then write something similar down below. You can just do that now, and it's kind of in sync. You're actually just changing one file. So I'm going to make that change here. I'm going to say int x equals 0. Then that's line 400. If I go up here, line 400, it's actually seeing that line. And then if I delete it, it's deleting from both places, right? So it's actually just one file. It's just a different view of the same file. That is also part of Visual Studio now. Oftentimes we write code like this, right, where the output of one method is the direct input of another method, right? So and at this point we're thinking, what is, I just want to show you this items getter. So I did an Alt F12 on that, and it says it's just populating 2 items for me, and then it returns a collection. I'm not even having a local variable here, where I would see the value. So I'm just going to start debugging this project, and then when I come here, escape. Okay, so now I want to know what filter actually is getting, right? So Visual Studio has this new concept called return value of a method. Let's just see that as soon as it starts loading all the symbols. Okay, so now I'm doing F11. I'm going into the method. So it's created that collection for me, and now it has returned it for me, right? At this point, so the return value of get items is the input for your filter, but you don't know what is the return value for that one, right? So what you do is you go to autos window, and then it says the items getter.get items returned a count of 2. So it's showing you the return value of a function, of a method, right? So those are the 2 methods, those are the 2 items in that collection, right? So the other thing is you can do a dollar return value on your immediate or watch window, and you'll see that exact same change, right? So you're seeing the return value of get items, and then when you do a dollar return value. Let's just continue on this thread. So I'm going to do a filter here. Obviously I can see the output, but when I come here, you see the sorted items is still null. But if I go to the autos window, it says items getter.filter returned count of 1, which is a config item, because that's what we filtered there, right? I just want to walk over this. So multiply is a method that I have that takes 2 integers and returns the product, and returns back the product. And then I have 5 that returns 5 and 6 that returns 6. So if I step in, okay, at this point I want to know what is the value of 5. I just go to autos window. It says home controller.5 returned 5, and then in my watch window the return value is also updated. Same thing again. Return value is 6, and home controller.6 returned. And then the last one, right? At this point you're still seeing the product being 0, but you can see that the multiply returned a value of 30, 6 times 5. Okay, so that is the return value functionality. Now oftentimes we want to do code refactoring by moving lines up and down. Visual Studio 2013 makes it really easy for us. So you just hold, you're on a particular line, you want to move that line, you just hold the Alt key and then you press up and down, right? The up and down arrows. That's what I'm doing here. It also does it for multiple lines, right? So you can do it for multiple lines as well. Oops. Right? So Alt up arrow, Alt down arrow. That is what I just did. Okay, so those are some of the coding, right? Coding enhancements that we saw, and then we look at some of the browser, web development and browser side enhancements. Now, oftentimes it happens that you have your browser, right, and then you have your IDE, right? They're kind of disjoint. They're separate. So one of the good scenarios is, one of the typical scenarios is, you load your application in a browser, and then you go to the browser in your DevTools, you start making modifications, right? So I want the margin to be a little more to the right, left, top, whatever, and then a little more padding, and I want to change the color to this, and of course I want to change this text to something else, right? You do all these things, and then you say, well, it would be really nice if I could just port them, transfer all those changes to Visual Studio without having to redo the whole stuff. Okay, so that's where browser link comes into picture. Browser link is a new feature of Visual Studio. So I'm just going to type dashboard here. Right, so that's the browser link dashboard. Let's keep that in sync. Skip it here. Okay, so if you didn't know, you can do this even now in 2012, right? So you can say browse with, and it comes up with a bunch of all the browsers that you have. So you can make them default. I have the Electric Plum, the iPhone simulator, I have that, and then I can either click on this, or I can just, let me see if a browser link is enabled. Okay, it's not enabled. Let me enable that first. Okay, so there it says that there are no connections, right? There are 0 connections. Now that I have selected multiple browsers, I'm just going to run the application. So it's running Firefox, it's running Chrome, and there is my iPhone. And I'm on trial version, so I'll have to do this manually. Okay, so that is done, and the last one, that's also done. Let me just move the windows a little bit now. And my Chrome is here, and my iPhone is here. Okay, so let me move my. Okay, so that is what my page looks like. So I'm just able to scroll in everywhere and see what it is that I want to see. Okay, so first thing, so you're seeing these changes here. Let me close this, and I want to open the HTML from the home page. All right, so first thing, you're seeing this page title here. I want this to be the page title, right? So when I do a save, I can either go and click here where it says this is the browser link extension, this is the browser link button, and it's telling me here that 3 browsers are connected. That's right, 3 browsers are connected, and the same thing here is shown here in the dashboard, where it says Chrome, Firefox, and Safari in an iPhone, right? So I can just click that button to update all the browsers, or I can do Control Alt Enter, that's exactly what I'm doing, and you see that the page title has been updated in all 3 browsers, right? So now your Visual Studio is able to talk to your browsers, right? So there is a one-to-one connection between each browser, each browser instance that you're seeing with Visual Studio. Now there is a drop down here, and there are some few options here. I'm going to click on the inspect mode, and just keep observing that on the iPhone emulator here, you'll see an overlay as soon as I click on the inspect mode, right? You saw the overlay. Now keep looking. When I hover over this, it's giving me live information. It's telling me where that content is coming from, right? So that's my image. That's my button. Those are my allies, and that is my div, and that's my h2, right? So it's giving me live information, right? So that is on one browser. Now I can actually do more. I'll just change the browser just to show that I can do it from anywhere. I don't have to actually do it from Visual Studio, right? The same options I'm getting here through Web Essentials. Web Essentials. Web Essentials is a really nice extension for Visual Studio. It's vswebessentials.com. You can just go to that and download it. It's an awesome extension. So what I can do here is I can click on Design, and then I'm going to my browser. Now keep an eye on the Visual Studio window here. This is from the right. So I just made a change in browser, and those changes are pushed back to Visual Studio, right? And I just, in order to get this, I hit the control key, and then that's when I got this option here. To hide it, you just press the control key again, right? Right, so you are able to make changes from your browser back to Visual Studio. And again, here I'm just going to press this button right now to push all the changes to all the other browsers. Right? So those are the changes. Pretty cool, right? What's more, right? Now I'm going to Chrome. Now I'm going to Firefox. I'm again going to do that, and it says something here, right? Auto sync. Now CSS plays kind of a special role here. Right? It was a little flaky earlier, so let's hope it works this time. So I'm going to make changes to the background color. Right? I'm just going to make it red, and when I do a save, oh, for some reason it's not doing it. Let me try it again. Blue. Okay. So I try this again. I just make it white. There you go. Now it's working. As soon as I do a save, it updates the screen. Right? So I can do A1 save. Oops. 1 B2 C3 save. Whatever. So it's kind of flaky. But you do realize that CSS changes get modified instantly. Right? There's not much of a delay there. It's just that Visual Studio is acting a little weird for me now. One more time. Oh, it's not doing it. Right. So you can change other things, like, I want to change the padding left for the body. So I make it 15. Oh, it's still not working. Whatever. So CSS changes are almost instant. Okay, so you're seeing it sometimes, you're not seeing it sometimes, but actually it happens almost instantaneously. Okay, so I can change the color and stuff like that. So CSS changes are almost instant. I can go into and then back into my Chrome here, and then I do F12. I do a control, and then I say sync my changes. Let me just bring this over a little bit, and here I can change. I can say make it 30 pixels, and you're seeing those changes back, right? So it's 30 pixels in my Visual Studio. So those changes are getting synced almost instantly. 50 pixels or 5 pixels is what I made it, right? So those changes are getting reflected back in Visual Studio instantly. I'm going to change the color of this to something like, did I select it yet? To red. There you go. You're seeing those changes back in the browser, right? So you're seeing those changes back in Visual Studio. Okay. All right, we're back to square one. That is the sync feature. Right? Now I'm going to go to so there's one more thing I want to show here for the inspect. Now in this, when I do an inspect, you see in line 19 in Visual Studio, it says that it's actually loading the text from a partial, right? So if I go to the Indigo page, it shows me the H2, and then if I hover over that text, which was render partial, it actually loads that partial for me, right? So now I don't have to keep worrying where a section is coming from for me, right? I know exactly where it's coming from. I just have to inspect it in the browser, and it updates here. If you have not seen Page Inspector, which is there in Visual Studio 2012, Page Inspector does very similar thing, but it loads it inside Visual Studio. But this is on a browser, so you can check it in any browser, right? So one of the things which the way we start doing development is we write some code. We write some code, and then we say, okay, then we check it in, and it goes to production, and then we get new requirements. We change more stuff. But what almost always gets remained in the file is unwanted CSS, and we are not very confident of removing it because we don't know where exactly it is applied. So this browser link kind of makes it easy for us. You see this unused CSS, so you can actually get the same thing from here. Sorry, from here. So you see this start recording here. That's pretty much what it is. It says unused CSS, right? So I'm going to click on record right now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start clicking over my pages, right? I'm going to go to different pages just to tell Visual Studio, hey, go ahead and keep track of all the rules that are there in my CSS files, right? And at the end of it, we can just say, okay, now I'm done. I've gone through all of them. I'll go ahead and stop my recording. And when I come back to my CSS file, it says no usages of this have been found, right? It's completely safe to remove that. No issues, right? So that is another thing that browser link allows us to do. So these are some of the features. The best part of browser link is that it is extensible, right? So you can write your own plugins for that. So that you can write your own plugins and close. You can add your own features, right? So the way to enable it is go here and enable browser link. The other way is go into web config, and if you have debug as true, wherever debug is there, right? If you have debug set to true, then it's enabled by default, or it looks into that. And if you want browser link to be enabled despite this being false, you have to add that key, right? vs enable browser link as true, vs colon enable browser link as true. So that will keep that'll keep your browser link enabled at all times. Okay, moving on. The HTML entities, right? Let me just go to a new file here. Okay. So IntelliSense has been pushed to a lot of different places, right? So I can just do HTML5 and then do tab, then it fills in the basic structure for me. It gives the basic structure for me, right? So it's again using IntelliSense. And then if I wanted to add a footer and I say span, now how do you find out the copyright symbol, the circle inside the C? Those are called as HTML entities, but you know that they start with an ampersand. What you do is you go on a search engine and you say HTML entities copyright symbol, and then you go and search and find it. You don't have to do that anymore. You just do ampersand, and Visual Studio will give you IntelliSense. So I can just start typing. So that's what I want, right? So I can also do 23 ampersand DEG, and I get degrees. So you're seeing that when I do that, I'm saying you're actually seeing the symbol with the preview of that symbol, what it is that it'll look like on the page, and it's also giving you the Unicode and the decimal character code. Right? So Visual Studio IntelliSense is going into new domains with 2013. Okay, now in order to select a section of your page, all right, let's try this one more time. Okay, I'm going to do the voice thing one more time. Format document. Look at that, it worked. So earlier this was not formatted, now it did. Right? So okay, I just want to show that to you. Just want to show it actually does listen to you. All right, so what if you wanted to select that the entire element of, or the entire section of a DOM element? What you end up doing is you either use your mouse and then click on that, select, you're doing your mouse select, or you can use your control home or control shift home, shift M kind of a thing. Or with Visual Studio 2013, you can do Alt 1, right? So that selects every element, everything inside a DOM element, and you can extend it by doing Alt 1. I'm just extending my selection, and if I want to exclude some of the things, I just start doing Alt 2. So Alt 1, Alt 2. That's another productivity tip for us to when we want to do selections. So when we add images to the pages, right? So Visual Studio now gathers some information about what kind of resource that is. So it knows that this is an image and it can now access the height and width of it, and it can directly add here, right? So because this is in a relative path, so let me just change it, and then when I hover over this, it actually shows me that image along with the height and width on the page. Right? So IntelliSense is kind of, you know, almost pervasive, I can say. It's there everywhere now. Visual Studio 2012 did not have IntelliSense for Angular, but 2013 does. So if I do ng, you see that hyphen dot dot dot, and when I do hyphen, it gives me all the Angular keywords. Okay? So I can do ng app, I can do my app, and I can come down here and I can say g controller my, I'm just going to type it small, and then when I come here, it gives me a tip. It says add the new Angular controller. There you go. So it knows that it's of type JS, and then you can go to your scripts folder and create that file for you. It will just create that file for you, right? So like, it's a lot more intelligent now. Visual Studio IntelliSense is pretty much everywhere now. We'll see more examples later on, right? The last one is for JavaScript and CSS enhancements. Those were the HTML and web enhancements. So we'll move on to JavaScript and CSS enhancements. Now, in JavaScript, now we can right-click and go to definition. Right? So it takes me to the IntelliSense folder, an IntelliSense file for jQuery, and it tells me what it is that that method is doing. Right? I can do more. I can just go. There you go. So it took me to the JavaScript file this time, and then I can also do it on custom ones, the ones that I have written there. So you can actually go to your references. Now the way it is working, and I believe this was there in 2012 as well, but in 2013 they made it better. So there is a references for file here, and it says it has a reference of all of these files. It actually keeps track of them. So in case you do a NuGet package update for jQuery, it comes in here and updates that number. Right? So it actually is keeping a track, and the reason is it says auto sync enable true. It's doing all of that, and that's how your go to definition is actually working. So it knows where each method is declared, and it takes you to that particular method. Right? Now coming to some of the CSS sites, when you start doing CSS3 features, right, like transform and things like that, if you don't know the syntax and if you don't know the vendor specifics, you just do a tab, and Visual Studio adds all the specific vendor specifics for you. So I can just do rotate 3 degree, and then I'm just going to hit enter, and it populates them everywhere for me. Right? So it also keeps them in sync. So changing one will actually update all the others. So that's one. I'm also getting IntelliSense for my pseudo classes, right? So after, before, and end, child, and hover, right? So I'm getting IntelliSense for my pseudo classes as well. And one of the most important things is for media, right? What is the syntax for this? I actually have to go and look it up. Not anymore. I just have to do a tab, and it gives me the syntax. Right? So here I just set up the properties. It says max width and min width and max height and stuff like that. And I can also define the viewport. There's a screen or a printer and things like that. So IntelliSense is helping us pretty much in all aspects of Visual Studio development. Okay, guys, those were some of the features that I want to talk about. Oh, it's the last one. It's the last one. Sorry. I can just do and the color picker gets a boost. So those are the colors. Anything before that line, those are the colors that are there in Visual Studio in that custom.css. And anything after that, there are some default ones that Visual Studio gives. And then you can also click on the color picker and then do that. or better yet, you can click on the eyedropper and say, you know what, I want the PowerPoint icon red. That is what I want. So you can do all of that, right? So color picker gets a boost in 2013. Okay, so guys, those are the things I wanted to talk about in as part of Visual Studio 2013 new features. Thank you so much, and I hope this was helpful for you.